If you were like me growing up, or even if you were an adult at that time, or not even around at 1970, and you've looked at game summaries, one thing I always looked at the game summaries. I love to see who scored the goals, who got the assists. I was even interested in the attendance. And it always struck me as odd that every game from Chicago during these days, the attendance was always announced at 16,666. Well, I just figured that they had a complete sellout every single game, and that was as many people as you could cram into Chicago Stadium. Well, I'm here to tell you that that number, for years thought to be the capacity, was a made-up number. Made up by the Chicago Blackhawks based on Chicago fire code regulations that stated how many people were allowed into the venerable old arena on any given night. In reality, and it was obvious to anyone who actually attended Blackhawk games, more than 20,000 screaming fans were crammed into Chicago Stadium just about every night that the Blackhawks were at home, and the Chicago Fire Department in 1970-71 was on to their scam. John Huser of the Chicago Tribune reported on this particular issue. The story, by the way, is from the second week in January, and Mr. Huser writes that at least 3 city fire code violations occurred Saturday during the Blackhawks-Boston Bruins hockey game at Chicago Stadium. All were the result of overcrowding, as almost 20,000 fans jammed the arena. Specifically, 2,790 standees were counted, 790 more than the city authorizes. Of these, 379 souls were permitted to stand in the mezzanine area, which is contrary to a fire department policy that has been enforced at other games and events since 1966. As a result, several aisles in the mezzanine and the first and second balconies became so overcrowded that progress was slow and difficult in getting to and from the seats. The city codes insist that aisles and corridors required for emergency exit remain clear under all circumstances. These violations were uncovered at the end of a 6-week Chicago Tribune investigation triggered by a report that crowd pressure caused a balcony restraining bar to break at the stadium for the second year in a row. No one, fortunately, was hurt at that time, but last year 13 people received treatments for various injuries, some that were very serious. Lately, welders have reportedly strengthened other bars in areas where the standees press against the seated audience. William B. Horstman, who manages Chicago Stadium for Blackhawks owner Arthur Wirtz, denied the alleged violations and said the fire chief who confirmed them is entitled to his opinion, because the fire chief is just going to lie about that to cause trouble. Horstman also continued the stadium policy of refusing to disclose actual attendance figures, even to the fire department who enforced the codes. Chief Frank Murphy of the Fire Prevention Bureau said, we've always had to have our own men count the house. We don't think that the attendance figures are anybody's business except the proper authorities, says Horstman. But he admitted that they don't even make a report of the attendance at Blackhawk game to the city. Even the city of Chicago's amusement tax return forms reflect the Chicago Stadium secrecy. Only gross revenues for the month are reported, with hockey, basketball, and other events lumped into one large figure. In contrast, the baseball, White Sox, and Cubs report their daily gross revenues, while the Chicago Bears Football Club even goes a little bit further, dividing their monthly grosses according to the types of tickets that are sold. All three make their attendance figures completely public. But of course, the National Hockey League, and isn't this the way they've always done business right up until the present, keeps things a big, deep, dark secret. And you gotta wonder, why has the NHL always been like this? Now, you fast forward ahead 50 years, and we're in the year of 2021. And even now, National Hockey League teams are not permitted by the league to say anything about a player's injury unless they follow the prescribed wording as written by the NHL. They can't say the guy had a hangnail or a split toe. It's either an upper body injury or a lower body injury, or they're on the COVID protocol. They're not allowed to say if they have COVID. They're only on the protocol. And why would that be? This is the way the NHL's always done business, and they always will, unless somebody holds them to account. Going back to 1970 in the Blackhawks attendance, Ron Andrews, who is the National Hockey League statistic guru and its publicity director, said that the Blackhawks helped pressure the NHL to discontinue publicizing attendance about 4 years ago, 1966. Ron, by the way, added, "I think it's wrong. I think we should reveal the figures." But Anderson went on to say that the Blackhawks evidently were concerned by discrepancies between their announced attendance and the league's official figures. Before the league ended its reports, Chicago claimed an average attendance of 16,666, whereupon our figures for the same period would average about 18,000 to 19,000, according to Andrews. And a mysterious Blackhawk spokesperson Saturday admitted that 16,666 legendary figure is completely made up. It's fiction. Something the guys made up because we don't announce our figures, according to this spokesperson. Chief Murphy of the Chicago Fire Department said he didn't realize that standing room tickets were being sold for the mezzanine until he got to the game and saw it for himself. Murphy said that he heard someone complain about the large crowd in the aisle under the press box, but by then it was just too late to throw all of them out. Besides, says Murphy, who in their right mind is going to go in there and tell those people that they've got to move, or worse, leave? We don't carry guns, you know. Chief Murphy was asked who informed the police, the ushers, and the firemen who control the crowds that the mezzanine rule was not to be enforced that night. Murphy smiled and said, "Ask the man who sells the tickets."